is up 51% over last year, with on-demand being up 48%, youth being up 119%. As well, a transit open house was held on October 21st. A few preliminary takeaways from the event were, as the budget engagement, was the need for more frequent service, expanded bus routes, and more on-demand buses. We are currently denying around 10 to 20 requests for evening service for late night on demand due to, currently it's largely due to insufficient resources. Part of that is just we've had issues with drivers. We had a few people recruited away from us, and we've had some sickness that's just made driver supply a challenge. We do have recruitment currently ongoing. We are training bus drivers, so we are hoping that some of that will be relieved here shortly. In environment and parks, we're currently kind of caught between fall and winter, so there's continued fall cleanup that is happening as part of that cycle. As well, in preparation for winter, we have delivered 24 neighborhood rinks so far, and usually we have about 30 that we deliver. So we're expecting a few more to come in. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, thanks for that, Chief Glavin. Great to hear the transit numbers continue to rise. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll continue on with our agenda. We'll go to the FCM Grant Application. I'll just ask is Chief Glavin to introduce, please.
Thanks, Chair Palat. We are seeing an increase in requirement for communities to have climate adaptation plans as part of grant applications. Given that this is a requirement that we're seeing grow, we are recommending that we complete a plan for this as part of the 2025 budget. We have identified provincial grant, or in this case, it looks like we might have an opportunity for a federal grant through FCM to help offset the cost of that plan. As a requirement, we do need a motion from council, and with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. DeVries.
Thank you, through the chair. So just a bit more information. A climate adaptation plan helps communities address the impacts of climate change. It helps identify risks and, of course, outline strategies to reduce vulnerability and enhance resilience. These types of plans often include both short and long-term actions, of course, to protect assets, infrastructure, and people from environmental changes such as extreme weather. As mentioned, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities is currently offering funding for climate-ready plans through its Green Municipal Fund. Based on the program criteria, the City of Grande Prairie is currently eligible for stackable grant incentives that could potentially secure a grant of up to $89,000. And of course, as mentioned, to meet these requirements of the application, a council motion of support is needed prior to the deadline of November 29. Upon completion of a climate adaptation plan, the city is then eligible to apply to additional funding through FCM, including their Adaptation in Action stream. This stream is part of a larger 8-year, $530 million initiative aimed at helping municipalities build climate resilience. As mentioned again, the key risk here is that climate adaptation plans are becoming a required element for several grants, and if the city does not have a plan, we may be excluded for future funding. So as mentioned, the current $75,000 request from capital tax in 2025 ideally would be coupled with the grant that we're applying to now, and then together would provide the necessary resources to complete a climate adaptation plan. And with that, the recommendation today, and my apologies, it's a bit wordy, is that committee recommend council support an application to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Local Leadership for Climate Adaptation, call for proposals to complete a climate adaptation plan.
Okay, thank you for the report. If memory serves me, I believe this is already in our capital budget for deliberations tomorrow for the $75,000. So any questions, Councillor O'Toole?
So there is a fee of $75,000, or what was that for? No fee to apply?
Through the chair, there's no fee to apply to the grant. The climate adaptation plan itself is around $150,000, and so currently $75,000 ideally would come through the capital request, and then the additional balance through the grant that we're applying for.
Okay. I would be supportive of making the motion when the time comes.
So yeah, seeing nobody with their hands up, you can go ahead and do business, please.
I move the committee recommend council support an application to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities local leadership for climate adaptation, call for proposals to complete a climate adaptation plan.
Thanks for that, Councillor O'Toole. Seeing nobody with discussion or debate, please vote. And that carries. Thank you for your reports. We'll move on to 4.3,
that
paved
forward.
gravel areas, and I'll look to Chief Glavin to introduce as well, please.
Thanks, Chair Palat. So administration was directed to bring back options regarding the cost of paving a portion of Range Road 54 and 99th Street. We brought back high-level costing based on past projects. To get more accurate estimates based on site conditions, we would need to engage a firm to complete a preliminary design. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hinton.
Through the chair. Good afternoon. I'm here today to provide information on the potential paving of two gravel roads, 99th Street and Range Road 54. That's right. This report responds to Council's request on August 26th to bring a report regarding options and cost implications for these areas following a delegate presentation. 99th Street's current status, it's an industrial area, currently a gravel rural cross-section with ditches and has no pedestrian facilities or street lighting. A preliminary design at an approximate cost of $70,000 would look at two options, an urban cross-section and a rural cross-section. It would consider existing utilities, expected traffic, and drainage issues, and determine what would be the most effective use of the existing right-of-way. This would provide more detailed cost estimates. A potential cost estimates that grade the road could be between $600,000 to $2.3 million. These estimates include 99th Street from 132nd Avenue to 128th Avenue, and 128th Avenue from 100th Street to 99th Street. Range Road 54, its current status, it's currently a rural cross-section that connects with a paved county road north of the city limits and 132nd Avenue. Both of those roads are paved rural cross-sections with ditches. The estimated cost for upgrading to a rural paved standard could range from $1.6 to $2.6 million. It's recommended that this council receive this report for information.
Okay, thanks for the report. I'll look for my colleagues for questions. Councillor O'Toole, please.
Yeah, before the annexation, was there any, I don't know if you can answer this or not, but was there any plans by the county to pave that road in the near future?
Chief Glavin.
Thanks, Chair Palat. Not currently aware if there were plans by the county, but there were certainly no requirements under annexation for the city to pave those roads, or pave that road in specific.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor O'Connor, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hinton. Just curious, there's two different phases on picture attachment 2, 99th Street from 128th to 132nd. It shows two red lines of the one in between the Kia and Pat's Auto, and then the one going down the road by Clayton Broska. So the green areas are not allowed for in those estimates that you've included?
Through the chair. That's correct. The two green areas aren't included in the cost estimate at the moment, but they could be included in a preliminary design if that was so chosen to do.
Yes, I've been contacted by some of the residents in particular to the east and not to the south, but they're in the process now of getting a petition together and talking to all the residents because when it rains, they actually get stuck in the road. And so that's a big concern for the businesses in that area. So my question is, if there is a petition, what needs to be included on, and maybe this is for administration, what needs to be included on the petition from the businesses on that access and both north, south, and east, west roads?
Let's look to administration for this one. Sure. Chief Glavin.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Plott. I know that in the report we do have links into the petition requirements as well as local improvement requirements. in this case, it's likely local improvement. However, ultimately, council can choose to allocate capital to any road, but typically when a road is constructed, it's constructed to the development standards at the time. So these roads are legacy roads. They've been developed for quite some time and weren't a requirement to be paved by the developer, similar as opposed to what we would require today. So if you went out to Center West or Vision West or any of the other more modern industrial parks, it's required to have paved roads, and you would pay for that as a owner of the site or developer, and then you would pass those costs on when you purchase them. So you're getting the value as opposed to a lower cost graveled site. So the way we have historically managed these upgrades has been by local improvement, similar to what was done over by the Sargent GMC dealership, where the adjacent properties paid for a portion of the local improvement. The city paid for a portion because there were additional items of work that the city chose to do at the same time as the local improvements.
Yeah, so I take it there is an expectation that there is businesses required to put some capital towards the project, or is this up to council to be able to say, hey, all the businesses, right now I know they're going to all the businesses and getting signatures, so does that carry any weight if we do that, if they do that?
Go ahead, Chief Glavin.
Thanks, Councillor Plott. As I said, historically, local improvements are funded by the businesses unless it's otherwise directed by council. The way that administration manages the road network is that we will rehabilitate roads to their current standards, and then outside of that, like let's say 68th Avenue, if we can use to expand that road to a twin section west of 108th Street, we can use off-site levies for that. In this case, in this area, that's not an option for that network that you're discussing in the industrial area.
Okay, so they can fill out a petition and get all the businesses involved and bring that. Should they address it to council, to yourself? Who would they send that to?
I defer that to the city clerk for proper process on the petition.
Thank you through the chair. We have a very comprehensive petition information package on our city website that will give them each step and everything that is required in the petition for them to submit.
Okay, they're online now, so they'll be following up on that process. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair O'Connor. Just before I go to another colleague, I just had a couple questions on this. I'm just wondering, and I appreciate that it's basically from what I read it, we're expecting this to be a local improvement by the businesses in that area. Have we ran any business cases though of what this is costing us for extra maintenance, street sweeping, odds and ends of costs that we would incur on it? And then is there an opportunity, I appreciate Chief Glavin had said that this isn't a levy style road, so this would have to be something council would decide within our capital planning. But is there a hybrid approach that we could be potentially looking at with this, where the city would allocate some funding and we'd expect some local improvement from the businesses to see if there's buy-in? I guess I just struggle with that. We expect the businesses to pay 100% for the road in this. When there's improvements to the city, we would receive future tax revenue because these properties wouldn't, in essence, go up in value. So is it all or nothing of go to local improvements, or option B is what? Like, is there an option B?
Thanks, Councillor Plott. Ultimately, council can direct the resources to go anywhere. So if you wanted that road paved, if council wanted that road paved, and it were put in the capital budget and it said go pave that road, we would go execute that, and you could do it in theory for $0 local improvement fee or anything to those. If there was support for some portion of it from local improvement, it could be X% city and then businesses. So I think in theory, any type of option that we wanted to consider, we could do. But past practice has been local improvements paid for by the adjacent properties or the benefiting properties.
No, and I guess for me, I'll go to CEO Burke in a sec. I guess for me, I'm wondering if there's an ability for council to have a conversation and saying we'd be willing to pay 50% of it or some kind of scenario to entice the people in that area to say, okay, it's being half paid for by the city. There'll be half in local improvements over a 10-year span. I just think it's much more palatable for them to actually achieve it in that scenario, but I'll go to CEO Burke.
One was just if there was some desire for council to advance this would be to at least move the design portion to budget deliberations. That would then allow us to refine some of the costings and some of the design options. So just if there's a desire to advance, that would be a small bite to keep this discussion going.
Okay, and I'll go to Councillor O'Connor in a sec. I know there's other areas, so I guess if we were looking at that within that motion, would you want specifically in this road improvement, this road improvement, this road improvement? Because I believe there's appetite of other sections in Grande Prairie to improve. Would it be the same process for all of them?
Just where we are in the budget cycle, I would encourage to refer this to budget, and then we can have a broader discussion with all of council on the capital budget during budget deliberations. But yeah, we're really in between where we are. But I think it would benefit from having all of the council be part of the capital discussion later this week.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, Councillor Blackmore. Okay, Councillor Bressy.
Thanks. Just a suggestion, if we do want to, I'd be very supportive of looking at a system where we do 50%, but it's time consuming to even just look at these improvements. And I hate to spend all this time and spend money and resources looking at something if there's not sufficient amount of property owners that will even be interested in even funding that 50%. So maybe something we want to look at is in the MGA, if there's a local property improvement process. My understanding is that there's a voting threshold where you have to have at least half the property owners owning X amount of the property's impact have to vote yes to it. And maybe something we consider looking at is creating a separate petition process that would be, we wouldn't start looking to it until enough property owners that could actually approve a local property improvement said, hey, start looking at this, but making it easier for them to do that petition. But for me, I don't really want to go down the road of just one-off saying, hey, let's look at this one, spend all the time looking at it, find out it's not there. So I think we need to improve our petition process, and that might be what we want to look at rather than looking at what's the individual roads that we want to consider.
I tend to agree with that, Councillor Bressy. It could be a long exercise for administration, but I would like to have a better, I appreciate the report, but I feel like the report is pretty much user pay and we're not supporting them. And I don't think that's the intent of council, but that's what we asked for in the report. That's what showed up. So I'd like to find other opportunities or options. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, and in speaking with the individual, they've gone door to door up to this point, not knowing that there is a petition option. So they've got like 95% support, not knowing that there is a financial contribution. So I think it's important that we look at the motion and get the study done and find out what those costs would be for that east, west, and north, south corridor to be able to include that. So I will make that motion whenever the business is arising.
Councillor O'Connor, or Councillor O'Toole, sorry, you had your hand up as well?
Yeah, about 7-8 years ago, I had a call from a business owner. He had a body shop out there by the mall. And he asked me if we could start paving some roads up there. Been there for quite a while. And I said, well, we can look into it. We looked into it, and there was design changes and sewer and water and all that. It wasn't cheap. And I said, well, why don't we just keep it the way it is, have open ditches, like have an area where it's county or county type grade, no curb and gutter. And they said, no, we don't want to put any money into it. We just want you guys to do it. So I went around and talked to about 4 or 5 other businesses. They had no interest in paying any money at all. That was 7 years ago. Business has changed. It could be different, but maybe if you want to do this, maybe there should be some options. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just refer to or ask administration. I mean, we could make a motion, as Councillor O'Connor is looking at doing, to get a study done on that one road, but But my concern is past the study. Is if we get the study, does that mean there's buy-in and we spent $70,000 for nothing? Is there a process like administration could come back to show us how we could look at these areas specifically of a business case for them, how much money we would look at inject through our capital tax to do these? At some point, these roads are going to fail and there'll be a responsibility, like every other road in the city. So I just wonder if there's a process we could go through without making a formal motion to spend money on something that may never come to fruition either. Councillor Connor, I appreciate if you want to make your motion after this, but my concerns in supporting a motion would be that we do the $70,000 study. We're not going to go ahead and do it as a capital improvement, and the people in that area say we're not spending the money on it. Now we've got a $70,000 report that basically does nothing for us. So would administration have another suggestion of how we could start to advance these kind of conversations with a different lens of it just being, maybe it's to Councillor Bressy's point, maybe it's an update of how we look at local improvements or these one-off areas. There's not many left in town. There's only a few spots that are like this, but how we could move forward in a different lens and just it being a 100% local improvement.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Plott. Hearing from Councillor O'Connor that there is a group that is working towards getting a group, and perhaps I would defer to council on what their comfort level is, whether you have a formal petition or whether you have a group of people show up to talk about their desire to have this capital improvement, where you could better gauge what their level of financial commitment is to doing the road. Administration can go out and to talk to different businesses, but if you already have a group that's engaged, that's interested in having this done, I think it would be useful to bring them forward so that they can communicate their desire, and then we would have an opportunity to gauge a group of currently engaged business owners if they're willing to put money towards this.
Okay, so just looking to my colleagues in administration, moving forward, do we need to task administration to make a secondary motion here now, receive this information and come with a second motion to bring this back, or what would be the best process to do this?
So as far as bringing it forward, I think that if we have an engaged group that is willing to put money in, then I think we develop a process. That would be my general. I know that we've had a lot of these local improvements not go anywhere with I'd rely on some others with the history on it, but these aren't always successful. I think they're more often not successful, where you can't get enough of the property owners to want to commit money to making it go forward. The city has tried to be the lead on some of these, and they've not gone forward. I believe actually the Eco Center was one of the ones that there was an opportunity and it failed to get that local improvement done in the past. So it really comes down to whether or not you have an engaged group. And typically, if they're led by the property owners, you have a better chance at getting that critical mass so that we can move forward with a local improvement. So for me, I think we'd want to establish that there is a critical mass before we start spending money on designs. And even though there's only a few, it could add up fairly quickly if we do design on a number of the gaps left in the city for where there's an interface between gravel and non-graveled areas.
Okay. I guess my concern with that is when we're approaching, are we putting skin in the game or not? Because currently the capital improvement is 100% on the owners. I guess that's maybe another council conversation for another time. Is it something we'd be willing to we're up to amount for council, so that when you're having those conversations with those proponents or landowners, they don't feel it's all on them. I think some of the negativity I've heard back from the folks in that area in the past that were willing to spend some money, they didn't want to spend all the money on it. So I just don't know how that conversation happens for admin without us having a policy or process or a pulse check on that. So I'm not sure we're solving this today. Good conversation. I'm just not sure what next steps would be, and maybe it's something we can recircle to.
If we were directed, I think we could do a kind of a jurisdictional scan of what other communities are doing, bring that context back for this committee so that you could evaluate what a policy could look like if there's others that exist out there. Might be a useful spot as a jumping off point for this. And then, again, we would continue to encourage this group of property owners to express their desire to have this done so we can utilize that, and perhaps we can get linked in with the leader of that as part of the stakeholder engagement for that report if we're directed to do so.
Okay, that makes sense to me. So what I would recommend my colleagues today is we'd accept this one for information, and if somebody had a secondary motion to start the next round of conversations with administration, then I would support that. So anybody want to make the motion to receive this for information? It's up to the group, I guess.
I can move. Go ahead, O'Toole.
I will receive this motion to receive for information and get that done, and then we can work on that after.
Okay, thanks for the motion for that.
Councillor O'Connor in favor.
Okay, then I would look to my colleagues to see if there's secondary business we want to go forward with on.
Yes, I've encouraged the people to go and knock at the door. Now that we know that there is an official, what do you call it, a survey or whatever, they will go ahead and do that and then come back and open the dialogue. And I'll ask them to add, are you willing to contribute towards some of the capital funding, or are you expecting the city to pay for it all? So it might be a combination of the above. So I'd like to move that we go ahead and ask the group to bring in their petition. At least then we can gauge participation.
Is that, I'm not sure.
I tried.
Well, and I guess Councillor O'Connor on that, they would be bringing a petition in with what we currently have for process now, which we're saying we might have a process gap on, maybe potentially a process gap. So I guess maybe a motion more in line with Chief Glavin has said to do a jurisdictional scan of how other areas are doing local improvements and what involvement the city could help with a local improvement expense. Maybe something along that lines.
So I'd like to move that we do a jurisdictional scan to look at what other communities are doing in this thing and to find out what options are available for this particular community.
Okay, so we'll just let our ledge services get that typed up here, and we'll take a look at your motion, and then we'll be able to proceed from there. So community direct administration to bring back a jurisdictional scan regarding local improvement expenses. Does that meet your intent? And would administration from this conversation be able to bring back a report that would work into the things we're speaking about, or is this motion capture that enough?
Thanks, Chair Plot. What we would bring back is looking at, so what's the range of options that other municipalities provide for local improvements, summarize that for committee. If there was something in particular that was very obvious for a recommendation, we'd put that in there. Otherwise, it would be information for committee to potentially direct us to go forward and create a new local improvement policy or amend something existing in order to allow participation by the municipality and the adjacent property owners.
Okay. That works for me. Councillor Blackmore?
One of the recommendations in the report is to refer $70,000 to the fall budget for a preliminary design for those upgrades. Is the committee not interested in making that additional motion?
We'll see when this motion goes through if that's something that committees will look at. I think Councillor.
That's the motion I thought Councillor O'Connor was going to make.
Well, somebody recommended against it, so.
Well, I'm not saying you should make them both. I guess that's one piece of it, but I don't know if that, to me, it would have addressed the bigger concern of can we fund these or not, and is this group going to fund it? So I think if we wanted to make a second motion refer this, that would be fully in order as well. So any more discussion or debate on the motion that's currently?
Yeah, can you show it up again, please?
It's in your e-scribe. It'll come up as committee direct administration to bring back a jurisdictional scan regarding local improvement expenses. If we're okay with that one, we can vote on that, and then we can make another motion about referring for budget as well. So I guess no conversation on that one, just please vote on that. Okay, and that carries. And then Councillor O'Connor, did you want to make the motion to refer to budget as well?
I'd like to refer the recommendation of $70,000 to do a study to budget deliberations.
Okay, that's in order. Seeing any conversation or discussion or debate? Seeing none, we'll just give Ledge Services a minute to type that in here. Okay, so we'll call that to order. Oh, correct. Yep. Good catch, Councillor Blackmore. So committee refer the amount of $70,000 for design work on this matter to budget deliberations? Yeah. Is
That looks
your
good
intent?
to me.
Okay. Please vote. And that carries. So thanks for the reports on that, and we'll be having a further discussion on this, it looks like, in the future. So we have no correspondence, other business, bylaw, or policy review, so we'll go to our outstanding item list, and back to Chief Glavin, please.
Thank you, Chair Palat. So we can amend the outstanding items list for item 1331, paving gravel areas, and then we'll add the new one. And we can also remove 1326, garden suites, as that was taken care of at council.
Okay. Thanks for the amendments. Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, if there's no discussion, I'd move that committee receive the November 12th outstanding items list as amended for information.
Thanks for that, Councillor O'Toole. Please vote. And that with that, we will adjourn, and we'll be back very shortly for our next committee meeting.